Your team isn't short on ideas, they're short on safety. Hey there, innovation champions, Melissa Dinwiddie here. And I want to talk about the difference between those two diagnoses, between being short on ideas and being short on safety. Because that difference determines whether your innovation initiative becomes a real culture shift or just another offsite that people talk about once and forget by February. When I was just out of high school, I got a job at a really kind of trendy housewares store in a shopping center, really kind of trendy shopping center, actually. And my manager was a kind of impatient type, the kind of teacher who sighs really loudly and raises an eyebrow if you don't catch on immediately when shown something once. And when there were two of us or three of us on the floor, she found ways to shame workers who were slower to learn, and she would pit people against each other. Ugh, it was really painful. And the mental calculus was really clear within my first week. Don't ask questions. Don't stick your neck out. Just go along to get along and try to survive. But here's the thing. This was an hourly wage job. It was not a career. It was not part of my identity. It was just something that I wanted to do to pay for my dance classes and save some money up before I went to college. And yet, just thinking back to those days, it was several months, it makes my stomach tighten up. Now, I tell you that story because I invite you to imagine how people in your organization feel when they don't feel safe to speak up in a job that is intricately woven into their sense of self, that is completely tied to their financial survival. Even just a slight edge, a feeling that they should self-edit before they speak, they should polish before they share, they should wait for permission that never explicitly comes, that can have a massive dampening effect on what they're willing to offer. I call this the hidden tax on your team's best ideas. It's not visible on any dashboard. It doesn't show up in any quarterly review, but it's being paid every day in every team meeting and every brainstorm where people perform certainty instead of sharing, the half-formed thing that might actually crack the problem open. This isn't a skills problem. It's not even really a creativity problem. It's a friction problem. And the organizations that reduce it, even slightly, they can see disproportionate returns. And I have seen this play out firsthand. I wrote about this recently in an article on my website I wrote about two different teams of researchers, UX researchers, that looked, identical on paper, but they performed worlds apart. And the difference had nothing to do with ability, and it had nothing to do with methodology. It was whether the manager participated. The team whose manager put down her pen and picked up the exercise and let herself be seen as human in the room, that team really loosened up. People got playful, ideas moved. The other team stayed very polite, very careful, very contained, and acutely aware that they were being watched. One manager really reduced friction with a single visible choice, and the other, without even intending to, increased it. This is really big. And the insidious thing about this kind of friction is how invisible it is, especially to the people at the top. Your most senior leaders, they often can't even see it anymore. The higher you go, the safer it feels to speak up because, you've earned your seat. Your ideas have been all validated enough times that you've stopped bracing for the reaction. So you've forgotten that kind of judgment exists because you just don't get it. But for the engineer who's newer to the team, the analyst who was shot down in a meeting last quarter, the manager who's seen an idea go nowhere 3 times in a row, for them, the calculus is different and the tax is real. The smartest people are not withholding ideas because they don't have them. They're withholding because the expected cost of sharing outweighs the expected benefit. Now, that's not a character flaw. That's just rational behavior. And it's not going to change through pep talks or culture decks or any innovation week event that you organize. It changes through practice. Small, repeated, low stakes moments where people discover through direct experience that it's actually safe here. So this is the insight behind my micro experiment model in my book, Innovation at Work. The experiments are not creativity exercises for their own sake. They're friction reduction tools. They're deliberate, repeatable ways to lower the cost of speaking up or trying something or sharing something unfinished. For example, a 15-minute crappy first draft showcase, which happens to be experiment number 1, removes the expectation of polish before sharing. Or you could put together, here's another, just something that you could do. Create an anonymous question box that lowers the social cost of surfacing the concern of everyone's what the concerns that everyone is thinking, but nobody's saying. Another experiment from the book is a very simple declare a failure round at the start of a meeting, which tells your team learning from what didn't work is really valued here. Super easy, super brief. None of these requires a day-long offsite. None requires your team to suddenly become creative people. They just require a leader who's willing to go first, to model the behavior that says, it's safe to be human here. The team with that brave manager in the session that I mentioned, she didn't have a formula. She just joined in. And that's where it starts. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, about where this friction lives and how leaders find their way through it. So there's a podcast coming soon where I want to dig into exactly this with the people living it. Leaders who have seen that tax in action. Leaders who have found ways to reduce it, and leaders who are right in the middle of figuring it out. So here's what I want to leave you with. The next time you're in a meeting with someone who is giving you a really carefully polished answer, or maybe someone who stays quiet when you know they have something to say, ask yourself, what's the tax they're paying right now? Because it's not that your people don't have ideas. It's that the expected cost of sharing outweighs the expected benefit. And until that changes, again, no innovation initiative in the world is going to move the needle. The good news is that you don't need a new program to start changing it. You just need to go first. Share that half-formed idea. Join the exercise. Let yourself be seen as a person who's figuring it out alongside them. That's where the friction starts to lift. So I would love to know, think back to your first job. Were you someone who asked a lot of questions, or did you figure it out pretty quickly to keep your head down? Tell me in the comments. I have a feeling that it says something really interesting about what you noticed in your teams today. And if you want 52 structured experiments for reducing friction and building the kind of psychological safety where real ideas actually surface, download a free preview of Innovation at Work at the link in the description. And if this was useful, hit that like button and that subscribe button and ring that bell, and I will be back soon with practical tools for leaders who want innovation that actually sticks. Until next time, stay curious, stay playful, and keep creating the impossible. Ciao.